Halloween 2 from 1981 is widely regarded as one of the better movies in the Halloween franchise. But it's important to ask, who gets most of the credit for that? Is it Rick Rosenthal or John Carpenter? Hey, what's up everybody? Nick here, and today I want to talk to you guys about Halloween 2 from 1981. And I want to ask you a simple question. Who really directed it? Now, that question on its face might make some of you guys go, what do you mean? Rick Rosenthal is the director, clearly. And yeah, he is the credited director and definitely directed the bulk of this movie. But, as you may know with any film, there are a handful of scenes and moments that can really bring a film together, can make it make sense, and can make it have a lasting impact on the audience. The reason I mention that is because every time you watch Halloween 2, that version that you watch, John Carpenter played a massive role in why that film turned out the way it did, for better or worse, depending on your opinion of the movie. So let's give a little history lesson here. See, John Carpenter did not want to direct Halloween 2. He passed up on it. John's career was really starting to take off, and he did not want to get stuck in the mud that was Michael Myers or Halloween. He saw the beginnings of a franchise here, and he wanted no part of that. Now, sure, he still did the music, and he wrote this script, but he did not want to step behind the camera for this. He wanted to do other movies. Debra Hill was very much the same way. She was involved, but not as hands-on as she was with the first movie. Now, John recommended his film school buddy Rick Rosenthal be the director of this film after Tommy Lee Wallace passed on it, because famously, Tommy Lee Wallace didn't want to do a sequel to the original Halloween. He didn't feel like they really had much more to say there. Now, it's important to note that this is right when the slasher craze was beginning to take off. Friday the 13th had come out, A Nightmare on Elm Street was just a few years away, and the 1980s would become what we know and love them to be today. So as the story goes, John Carpenter wrote the script for Halloween 2 with a six-pack of Budweiser. He had hit a block midway through writing this thing, and he had no idea what more he had to say. He had no idea where to go with this story. So he threw in the brother-sister angle, and the rest is history. Now, I guess if you look back at David Gordon Green's trilogy, it's not history because that didn't happen. But you know what I mean. Now, Rick Rosenthal was a young director. He was fresh out of film school. This was his first big movie. So it was no surprise that after the film's first cut was turned in, John Carpenter was not a fan. He felt like the movie was boring. It was too slow. It didn't have enough kills, enough violence, enough scares. He felt, as he put it so aptly, that it was like an episode of Quincy. So John Carpenter was given 3 days to do reshoots on Halloween 2. Now, I'm sure a lot of you guys know that he did some reshoots here. I'm going to go ahead and say that those reshoots helped shape Halloween 2 into the film that it is, and I feel like they were necessary. And that's not to take away from what Rick Rosenthal contributed to this movie, because he definitely did. But honestly, I feel like a lot of what stands out on Halloween 2 has John Carpenter's fingerprints all over it. So let's go over it, and then you can decide for yourself. The first scene that John Carpenter shot for Halloween 2 was the scene with Alice across the street from the Elrod's house. Now, I'm just going to let you guys know, these locations in real life are not across the street, okay? They're pretty far apart. So this thing had additional photography written all over it. Like, you can just tell they are very far apart in Southern California. But John added this scene. We hear Miss Elrod screaming in the background, Alice comes outside, and then she's on the phone with her friend when Michael Myers sneaks into the house and kills her. Now, I feel like for a lot of people, they really like this scene. One, because we have Michael in the shadows, stalking, and Alice has no idea that he's there. That's a lot more in line with how Michael was in the first movie, so that's a nice bit of tension and suspense. We also then have, clearly somebody's in the house, but where are they? Now, I do find it weird that Michael just kind of pops up from the ground, it would look like, but it's an effective moment, and it's a bloody kill in this movie. And I think it sets the tone from the very beginning that Michael Myers is out for blood. The next scene that John shot is 100% John Carpenter. Like, if you know the man as a director, this makes sense that it was him. It is the scene where we have Pamela Susan Shoop's character talking with her friend about how she's going to be late and going to the car. And then we move to the boombox boy, where Michael runs into him and hears on the radio that Laurie has been taken to Haddonfield Memorial Hospital, to where then Michael walks through the town square and turns left at the sign, telling him where to go for the hospital. Now, this is a really, really great moment in this movie for a lot of reasons. One, it's a long tracking shot, and John Carpenter loves to do those, and I'm telling you, at that time, nobody was like John. He was unmatched with these long tracking shots. It was also really important narratively because how the hell would Michael Myers know where exactly she was taken to? And that was one thing that John specifically called out, why he added this scene, because he felt like, why would Michael show up there? There would be no reason for him to know she went there. So it was a very important scene. And in my opinion, it's one of the more iconic moments in this movie because it gives us a little taste of Haddonfield and the fallout from the events that happened that night. And it shows us Michael on the hunt for Laurie Strode. The next scene that John shot for this movie was Mr. Garrett's kill scene. In the original cut of the movie, Laurie was just going to find his body in the basement in the third act of this movie. But John felt like this movie needed more scares and more violence. So he directed the whole moment of Mr. Garrett walking outside, going into the storage closets, opening the doors one by one, eventually ends up getting bludgeoned by Michael Myers. Now, I love this scene in the movie, and fun fact, it is exactly 5 minutes from when Mr. Garrett says it'll take him 5 minutes to when the scene ends. See, I think this scene adds some suspense. We know that Michael is lurking, and it really builds to get to the point where Michael eventually comes out of the shadows and attacks Mr. Garrett. But you know he's there, and you're just waiting for it to happen. And I feel like these scenes in horror movies where someone is alone in a dark area and we're really just waiting on pins and needles for something to happen are effective. That is suspense. And this kill is largely bloodless, so this wasn't really done to add blood. I think it was more just done to explain what happened to Mr. Garrett, but also just add some tension, add some suspense, or maybe just some runtime to the movie. Now, those are the major scenes that John directed in this film, but he also directed moments. He added moments in already shot scenes to kind of accentuate certain things, mostly blood and gore. The first one is the hypodermic needle into the temple, which is one of the most iconic moments in this entire movie. So absolutely kudos to John Carpenter for doing that. That was the right decision. The next one was the close-up of Michael Myers' mask burning at the end of the movie. And these are the ones that we can confirm. But I am willing to bet that some of the extended gore and some of these kill scenes or just added shots here and there were probably John as well, but we cannot verify that. Like the pool of blood after the nurse has been drained of all of her blood in her body. That could have been John. Who's to say? So after those 3 days of additional photography, the final cut of Halloween 2 was turned in, and that is the movie we get today. So you would look at this movie on the whole and go, John directed maybe, 15-20% of it, if that? So clearly Rick Rosenthal directed this movie. And yeah, Rick Rosenthal was the director, but I feel like John's contributions make Halloween 2 what it is. Look, first and foremost, Michael would have no idea where Laurie was, if not for John's footage. So that is really, really important in making this story concise, or as concise as it can be. Secondly, I know some people take issue with some of the added gore in this movie, and I understand because it's definitely a step up from the original Halloween. But in a lot of those moments, John also added suspense, stalking, elements from the first movie that I feel like in a lot of areas in this movie are lacking. Whether it's him outside Alice's house, or whether it's just us knowing that he is in there when Mr. Garrett is looking through the storage closets. That adds tension to the film, and I feel like that was entirely necessary. I also feel like upping the gore was the right decision at the time. It's got a higher body count. They were clearly competing with the movies that were coming out at that time. And I feel like if anything, it gives Michael an added dimension. Like, oh, okay, this guy is not to be messed with. Like, this guy's for real. Because as much as I love the original Halloween, and I do, it's my favorite movie of all time, there are moments where it seems very tame. Halloween 2 is not that way at all. And that is an argument a lot of times for why people will say they much prefer the original to its sequel, and why they sometimes don't like Halloween 2 at all. But I just can't agree with that. I feel like it was right for the time, and I feel like it added a lot to this movie. And John Carpenter is the big reason for that. Look, he wasn't wrong. If you take out the footage that John shot, and I want to see somebody make a cut of this movie without John's footage, at least just the footage that we can confirm, you'll notice a lower body count, far less scenes of suspense, lower amount of violence, and a narrative that doesn't really tie all that well together. So as much as I love this movie, and I give Rick Rosenthal a ton of credit for this film, I feel like, although he didn't direct the bulk of it, John Carpenter directed what probably stands out the most about Halloween 2 to me. Because, look, a lot of this movie is just long shots through hallways. Like, that's it, with music playing. It can get boring at times. That's not what John added to this film. Rick Rosenthal famously said he wanted it to be very much in tone with the first movie. The difference was, in a lot of these shots, in a lot of these moments, the threat of Michael isn't ever present. I don't know if it's maybe we needed to see him one or two more times. Maybe we needed to see something happen. I know what Rick was going for, but it just doesn't feel like that threat is looming at all times. But in the footage that John shot, you know he's there. You know he's looming. And I feel like that is the Michael Myers that I came to know and love from the 1978 movie. So give Rick Rosenthal all of his flowers. But I'm going to say that Halloween 2 is largely as good as it is because of John Carpenter. See, some people get the character and some people don't. And I feel like that's only further evidenced by the fact that Rick Rosenthal came back to direct Halloween Resurrection. And no matter what you think of that movie, nothing in that movie is in Michael Myers' MO whatsoever. That is not the Michael Myers I came to know and love. There is nothing about that movie that is suspenseful, that is eerie. It's just not there. I don't think Rick gets the character. John Carpenter clearly gets the character, which is why it makes it all the more frustrating that John for years and years and years has wanted nothing to do with Halloween, because nobody gets this character like John Carpenter gets this character. But that makes sense. He created him. So yeah, guys, I guess the question is really for you. Who do you feel like is more responsible for Halloween 2 being the beloved sequel that it is today? Do you feel like Rick Rosenthal should get the credit, or do you think John Carpenter gets omitted and it's not fair? Whatever it is, I want to hear down below in the comments section from you. I want to thank you all so much for watching this video. Please make sure to leave a like on it, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I'm Nick. I talk about Halloween a lot because this is kind of my bread and butter and I'm kind of a nerd. So if you like that, join me. But that's going to do it for me today. So thank you all so much for watching. This is Nick at the Lost River Drive-In and I'm pulling out.